No, this is not the G-Unit sneaker. Sorry. Listen, everybody over there at G-Unit, when y'all was out of business.
There they go. Oh man, Ricky's crew. He said he got a $2 million crew in New York City. He was talking about the NYPD.
Did you know Rick, while he was working in law enforcement?
He was a correction officer.
So we're clear he was a correctional officer.
How do you feel about Bossa giving you the name Officer Ricky? I just want to hear it from you.
Baby, I'm worth too much money to even be, sidetracked on this carpet.
I'm deciding to your life up. Rick, bro, I'm gonna your life up. For fun. This a few times. This is not.
What happens when the biggest troll in hip-hop decides to destroy your entire image? That's exactly what 50 Cent did to Rick Ross. From exposing secrets to turning Officer Ricky into a worldwide joke. This wasn't just a rap beef, it was psychological warfare. But did 50 actually end Ross's career? Or did Ross survive the storm? Let's find out. 50 Cent has long held the crown as hip-hop's master provocateur. A figure who reshaped the art of trolling into something bigger than Jokicit became a career strategy, a cultural stamp, and at times, even a weapon. In a genre built on bravado and competition, 50 elevated beef into its own form of entertainment. While most rappers might trade a few subliminal bars and move on, he made an entire business model out of feuds, weaving them into his image and legacy. The way he approached conflict wasn't just about clapping back, it was about controlling narratives, shifting attention, and keeping his name in the center of conversation. From the very beginning of his career, Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson, understood the value of controversy. His breakout moment, the infamous track How to Rob, was less about lyrical artistry and more about audacity. In it, he jokingly detailed how he'd rob every major star in the game. From Jay-Z to Mariah Carey. The record immediately put him on the industry's radar, not because he had a major hit, but because he dared to poke the biggest names before he even had an album out. That was classic, 50 leveraging boldness to draw attention, forcing people to talk about him, whether they wanted to or not. As he rose to stardom, beef became the backdrop of his career. Some artists avoid conflict to protect their brand, but 50 thrived on it. He recognized that in hip-hop, controversy sells, and fans are drawn to drama just as much as music. Instead of shying away from rivalries, he leaned in and transformed them into performances, each feud playing out like a soap opera with twists, insults, and public spectacles. Every move he made turned into a headline, and that kept him relevant even when he wasn't dropping music. One of the clearest examples came in his legendary war with Ja Rule. What began as a street-level conflict in Queens spiraled into one of the most iconic beefs in rap history. While Ja Rule was topping charts with hits like Always on Time and Mesmerize, 50 systematically dismantled his credibility. He didn't just respond on wax, he launched a full campaign. Diss records like Back Down attacked Yaz's street image, while G-Unit mixtapes kept the pressure constant. Then, in a move that showed his knack for theatrical trolling, 50 bought 200 front-row tickets to Ja Rule's concert not so fans could enjoy the show, but so those seats would sit empty. The stunt left the venue looking half-dead, and it became one of the most infamous examples of pettiness as strategy. To this day, people don't just remember Ja Rule's hits, they remember how 50 humiliated him. But what made 50 different wasn't just that he beefed, it was how he did it. He approached rivalries like chess matches, thinking several moves ahead. When he showed up to collect money from one of his own artists, he wasn't just making a private demand. He was putting on a spectacle, creating a viral moment before viral was even a term. These theatrics weren't random, they kept fans engaged and ensured that every conflict generated attention that ultimately benefited him. 50 also understood that trolling could be repurposed as marketing. His conflicts often coincided with album releases, film projects, or business ventures. When the public was buzzing about a beef, his name would dominate headlines. And that translated into curiosity about whatever he was selling. For example, during his battle with Kanye West in 2007, the two staged a sales war, both dropping albums on the same day. 50 declared he'd retire if Kanye outsold him, while Kanye ultimately won. The stunt created a cultural moment and boosted sales for both artists. Even in losing, 50 proved he knew how to turn rivalry into revenue. Yet, What separates 50 from other rappers who've engaged in beef is his sheer creativity in trolling. Diss tracks are expected, but animated cartoons mocking rivals, that was new. Satirical skits, Instagram shade delivered with the precision of a stand-up comedian, that became part of his playbook. He found ways to make his beefs entertaining not just for hip-hop fans but for mainstream audiences who might not even listen to rap. For 50, the insult wasn't just the point the performance was. There's also an element of fearlessness that defines his approach. Many rappers avoid direct shots at big names because they don't want to risk retaliation. 50, however, has gone after industry giants without hesitation. Whether it was challenging Jay-Z, clowning Diddy, or mocking Floyd Mayweather's reading ability, he consistently punched up. Each time, he positioned himself as someone unafraid to take on the powerful. And that bolstered his image as a fearless disruptor. But underneath the trolling lies a sharp understanding of psychology. 50 knows that in hip-hop, image is everything. By framing rivals as fake, soft, or hypocritical, he weakens their standing in the culture. He doesn't just try to out-rap his opponents, he tries to redefine how the world sees them. When he branded Rick Ross as Officer Ricky, he wasn't just making fun of Ross's correctional officer past. He was attaching an identity that Ross could never fully escape. It stuck because 50 made it stick, repeating it until it became inseparable from Ross's name. That's the kind of trolling that doesn't fade, it reshapes careers, and while his tactics can be brutal, they're also calculated. 50 rarely attacks without reason. He looks for vulnerabilities, whether it's a questionable past, a personal controversy, or even a rival's public image, and then builds a narrative around it. Once he spots blood in the water, he doesn't let go until the world takes notice. That relentless nature is what makes him dangerous in beef, and why so many rappers avoid stepping into his line of fire. Still, 50's trolling hasn't just been about tearing others down, it's also been about elevating himself. His willingness to clown, provoke, and even embarrass has kept him in cultural conversations long after his peak as a recording artist. While other rappers fade once the hits slow down, 50 remains relevant because he's always finding ways to stir the pot. His feuds turn into entertainment arcs, his social media posts into viral content, and his trolling into headlines that keep his name alive. Even outside of music, he applies the same strategy. As a television producer, he promotes his shows with the same aggressive flair he once used in rap battles. He'll start beef with rival networks, mock actors who leave his projects, or create buzz around his Power and BMF series by sparking controversy. It's the same playbook, different arena. The common thread is simple: where there's 50, there's always drama, and where there's drama, there's attention. Ultimately, 50 Cent's mastery as hip-hop's ultimate troll lies in his ability to merge conflict with spectacle. He doesn't just diss, he stages events. He doesn't just mock, he brands. He doesn't just seek revenge, he turns it into entertainment the world can't look away from. What started as survival in the ruthless world of rap battles evolved into a career-long strategy that blurred the line between artist and entertainer, between feud and performance. For 50, beef isn't just about winning, it's about rewriting the rules of engagement. He proved that in hip-hop, the loudest voice isn't always the one with the best bars, it's the one who knows how to turn every rivalry into a stage, every insult into a headline, and every feud into a show the world can't stop watching. And in that arena, nobody has played the game quite like him.
Because this guy came out and it was, I guess he started something. Yeah. So what you do is, you come on and you go, I'm gonna f up your life, and, which is really gotta be unpleasant.
The tension between Rick Ross and 50 Cent officially ignited at the 2008 BET Awards. Ross claimed he didn't like the way 50 looked at him, but when asked, 50 brushed it off with laughter, saying he couldn't even remember Ross being there. That small spark, though, exploded into one of the most infamous feuds in hip-hop history. With the spotlight on, 50 went on the offensive, dismantling Ross's career step by step. By 2011, 50 reflected on the origins of the drama. From his perspective, it was simple: Ross wanted attention. It all started because I looked at him the wrong way, 50 explained, suggesting Ross was chasing competition and publicity rather than genuine conflict. True or not, that single moment on the BET stage was the catalyst. Ross wasted no time striking back, dropping mafia music, a track packed with subtle jabs. But one lyric in particular hit below the belt: burn the house down, you got to buy another, don't forget the gas can. What seemed like a standard rap boast carried a darker weight. Ross was referencing the 2008 fire that destroyed the home of 50's ex, Shaniqua Tompkins, where she and their son Marquise had narrowly escaped with their lives. At the time, 50 and Shaniqua were locked in a bitter custody and property battle, which made the incident even more explosive. 6 people were inside when the blaze broke out, and while the house was reduced to ashes, thankfully no lives were lost. Shaniqua publicly accused 50 of being behind it, claiming, "He's obsessed. He's very obsessed. We're in litigation. He said he was going to have someone come at me. Watch what he does." She even alleged she heard intruders before the fire spread, charges 50 always denied, but ones that added fuel to an already blazing feud.
Meech do an Instagram video together because Big Meech is doing this big concert, and so then 50 gets upset about that. Did 50 post anything, or did he just kind of unfollow Lil Meech?
50's camp wasted no time clearing the air about the fire. They confirmed he was in Louisiana when it happened, shutting down speculation. But Ross wasn't interested in facts. He knew invoking that tragedy would sting, and he leaned on it in his diss. In interviews, Ross even boasted about mafia music, saying, "I had to address a few things. I had to address a few people. Some people are going to be messed up. That's the best way I can put it at that point." At the time, his confidence was sky high. 2 platinum albums under his belt, Hustling cemented as a street anthem, and the industry embracing him as hip-hop's next heavyweight. Ross felt untouchable. But what he overlooked was the opponent standing across from him. This wasn't just another rapper. This was 50 Cent, battle-tested, relentless, and notorious for dismantling rivals for sport. Just ask Ja Rule, Fat Joe, or The Game. None of them left their beef with 50 unscathed. And now Ross was next on the chopping block. As 50 warned bluntly, "I'm a mess your life up. For fun." And from the outside looking in, the formula was obvious. If 50 could dig up dirt, Ross's empire could crumble. Unfortunately for Ross, a skeleton was already waiting in the closet, one capable of shattering his entire image. To trace it back, we rewind to 2006. When the smoking gun dropped a bombshell, expose titled "Screw Rick Ross," the report revealed that before the fame, before the kingpin persona, Ross' real name William Leonard Roberts, too, once worked as a correctional officer. The evidence was undeniable. A photo of a young Ross in full uniform, proudly shaking hands, at his graduation ceremony. Records showed he served at the South Florida Reception Center in Dade County. For a rapper branding himself as a drug boss and street legend, this revelation was a PR disaster. Ross panicked, first denying it outright, even floating the wild excuse that hackers had photoshopped his face onto a CO's body. But his troubles didn't stop there. While fans debated whether Ross's officer past was real, another controversy bubbled up: his very name. Borrowing from real-life gangsters wasn't unusual in rap. Nipsey Hussle, Bugsy Malone, even Machine Gun Kelly all drew inspiration from infamous figures. But Ross had crossed a sharper line. He didn't just borrow, he outright took the name of a living, breathing former drug kingpin, Freeway, Rick Ross. And the real Rick Ross was not amused. When it came to Ross's credibility, the cracks started showing fast. Critics pointed out that his fame skyrocketed on the back of a drug kingpin persona, even though he'd never lived that life. The truth about his correctional officer past gave 50 Cent all the ammunition he needed. Once Ross dropped mafia music, the door was open, and 50 kicked it wide with Officer Ricky Go Ahead. Try Me. The track painted Ross as a fraud, mocking him for posing as a boss while really being a CO. But 50 didn't stop at diss records. He went further, creating an animated cartoon series called Officer Ricky, which mercilessly clowned Ross. Overnight, the name Rick Ross became synonymous with one image: a uniformed officer behind prison walls. Ross tried to laugh it off, but the nickname stuck, cementing itself into hip-hop's memory. And with 50, the destruction never stopped at just one target. This time, he dragged Ross's personal life into the fire. His ace, Tia Kemp, the mother of Ross's firstborn son. 50 sat her down for a tell-all video, where she dismantled Ross's public image piece by piece. She called his gangster persona fake, exposed details about his family life, and even aired out drama with his other baby mamas. It was messy, raw, and exactly the kind of chaos 50 thrived on. At one point, he even teased publishing TA's memoir, About Life with Ross. The book never came out, but the humiliation alone did plenty of damage. But in classic 50 fashion, the trolling escalated. Another of Ross's exes, Lastonia Leviston, ended up at the center of the storm when an explicit tape of her surfaced online edited, with 50's voice and pimp persona mocking the whole thing. Leviston sued, accusing 50 of posting it without her consent, and the legal battle dragged on for years. When the case finally closed in 2015, the verdict hit 50 hard. He owed her $5 million in damages. The financial blow forced him into bankruptcy, and though he later tried to pin the leak on Ross, the ruling stood. It was one of the rare moments where 50's trolling came back to cost him. Still, he never let up on Ross. He kept the Officer Ricky jokes alive, turning Ross's law enforcement past into a permanent meme. Ross, for his part, tried to play it cool, throwing subliminal shots and occasional disses, but it always felt like he was playing catch-up. 50, meanwhile, moved like a chess master, even posing in Las Vegas with Floyd Mayweather, Tia Kemp, and Ross's own son, just to twist the knife deeper. Even those who thought 50 had crossed the line couldn't deny the effectiveness. Every reminder circled back to the same point: Rick Ross was not who he claimed to be. The ultimate blow came years later. For 4 years, Ross denied the correctional officer story, dodging interviews and spinning excuses despite photo evidence. But in 2014, on his mastermind track, Rich is Gangster, Ross finally cracked. He admitted the truth. "That's why I had to play the part. That wasn't me. It was a job." For the first time, Ross publicly owned what 50 had been shouting all along. But here's where it gets complicated. Did 50 really win? In hip-hop, being tied to law enforcement is the ultimate stain, a career killer. And while Ross's credibility definitely took a hit, his career didn't collapse. Fans still showed up for the music, his base stayed loyal, and many listeners didn't care about his past as long as the record slapped. Still, the scandal left its mark. Before Mastermind, Ross was on top, stacking platinum albums and topping charts. Afterward, his momentum slowed. His next album, Hood Billionaire, had the lowest first-week sales of his career, 450, that looked like victory, but it came at a cost. The $5 million lawsuit loss was a heavy price to pay for a feud, and filing bankruptcy gave critics new ammo against him. Ross, meanwhile, tried to spin the narrative, saying he took the co-job for bigger reasons, framing it as part of a larger hustle. But the Officer Ricky saga never disappeared. Anytime his name came up, the jokes resurfaced. It clung to his legacy like a shadow. Even years later, Ross couldn't hide his frustration, especially when Charlemagne Thagot called 50 a diabolical genius. Ross fired back, dismissing the label. A diabolical genius doesn't file foreclosure, doesn't file bankruptcy. That's not genius. But his clapback only reminded the world of how badly 50 had exposed him. And just when their long war seemed to cool off, a new spark reignited the tension, this time involving one of hip-hop's most notorious names, Big Meech. Demetrius "Big" Meech Flannery, co-founder of the Black Mafia family, was a living legend in the streets. And after years behind bars, he was finally moved to a halfway house. Naturally, the hip-hop world lined up to connect with him. Both 50 and Ross claimed ties, but for 50, it was personal. He was the executive producer of BMF, the Hit Stars series based on Meech's empire, even casting Meech's son to play him on screen. So when photos surfaced of Ross linking up with Big Meech, 50 saw it as betrayal. He didn't take it lightly, firing off Instagram posts with rat images and shady captions, even tying the move back to Ross's 2010 anthem, BMF, Money Fast. For 50, this wasn't just rap, it was legacy. And the feud, decades in, still refused to die. Instead of ignoring 50's shots, Ross doubled down. He fired back with a video mocking 50's BMF series, dismissing it as low-budget and unimpressive. Then he went a step further, boasting that he'd create his own BMF Movie, a bold challenge that only poured more fuel on the fire. By now, it's crystal clear, 50 Cent and Rick Ross will never see eye to eye. Their feud has stretched across years, albums, lawsuits, and personal lives. With no sign of truly ending, if hip-hop took one lesson from their war, it's this: never bring skeletons into a battle with 50 Cent. He'll find them, drag them into the light, and make sure the world never forgets.